Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I'm going to have a lot of links for you, but I'm not sure how much time I'm going to spend on each one because there's just so much. Anyway, I want to point out some of the major things. First of all, when I put this video out yesterday, it had information about this guy, Henry Kerner, who was the person who signed the letter, the report that about Kellyanne Conway. And Ian here gave me some interesting insight into it. He said, when I saw who signed this letter, it all fell into place. Henry Kerner is the most powerful deep state player we've never heard of until now. From what I learned earlier today, he is the controlling force of all whistleblower programs and controller of all investigations being conducted by the DOJ and FBI. He makes people like Comey, McCabe, and Mueller look like grade schoolers in terms of the power he wields on behalf of the deep state and Dems. Koerner is at the junction point of all actions that would clean up the swamp, and he is blocking it all. This explains the peremptory tone of his letter to the president, having reached a judgment against Conway and effectively demanding that she be fired. I think we have an answer to why it is taking so long to move forward in cleaning the swamp. It's this Henry Kerner who's blocking every action against the deep state using his immense power. Okay? And so I pinned that so everybody could see it because I think it's got some really good information in it. Well, this is the OSC, and I've been trying to nail down exactly how this fits into all the government structure, and I'm just not sure yet. I thought maybe it would be under the DOJ, so I went to the DOJ organization chart, but it doesn't seem to be in there anywhere. So I'm not sure how, it actually fits in. Now, I know that the special counsel, who is the head guy of that organization, is appointed by the president, and then he has to be confirmed by the Senate. So that's what this guy was. President Trump actually appointed this guy. And so, and it says here, it has, he was appointed intent to nominate Henry Kerner to the office of special counsel. And that was May 26, 2017. So, is he the one that's been doing it? I don't know. Now, this bio and the one back here are pretty much the same thing. I think they're exactly the same, actually. But there's something that you need to notice, that he was involved with he was part of the staff of the House Oversight Committee under ISA, the Chief Investigative Committee of the United States House of Representatives, under Chairman Issa and later Chairman Chaffetz. He led investigations of the federal bureaucracy and fought on behalf of whistleblowers to protect American taxpayers. Mr. Koerner was the staff director under Ranking Member Senator John McCain of the Senate Permanent House Subcommittee on Investigations, the lead investigative committee of Congress. He then became a vice president of Cause of Action, a nonpartisan oversight group committed to exposing waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, and which has worked with whistleblowers and good government groups throughout the country. Okay, and remember, that's what President Trump put out when he announced his intent to nominate the guy. Okay, so, after I was seeing all this stuff, I thought, well, there's got to be more to it. I have just so many tabs open at the top because, when you do research, one thing leads to another, to another, to another. So, I wanted to share so much with you about this guy. Well, he has been mentioned, like in this article by the conservative Treehouse, and this was back almost exactly a year ago, June 22nd, 2018. Now it all starts making sense. Deep state fixer Henry John Kerner, the cover-up expert. And so Judicial Watch did a little investigating, you know how they do, and they came up with this report that was like documentation of a staff meeting that went on with IRS official Lois Lerner and some other IRS officials. And this Koerner guy was there. And if let's see, here's the actual document. During the conversation, they were talking about these organizations that are 501c4, which would be tax exempt, how they're actually working like these 527 organizations, which are political. And so they were having this discussion about how do we stop organizations that say they're really tax exempt and then they're not doing political stuff, but they really are a political organization. So this was the conversation that ensued about that. And Henry Kerner asked how to get to the abuse of organizations claiming Section 501c4, which would be tax exempt, but designated to be primarily political, which would be not tax exempt. Lois Lerner said the system works, but not in real time. Henry Kerner noted that these organizations don't disclose donors. Okay. Lois Lerner said that if they don't meet the requirements, we can come in and revoke, but it doesn't happen timely. Nan Marks said if the concern is that the organizations engaging in this activity don't disclose donors, then the system doesn't work. Henry Kerner said that maybe the solution is to audit so many that it is financially ruinous. Yeah, that's a pretty bad statement there, isn't it? So this makes him look like he was part of this whole idea of basically inundating these organizations, the conservative organizations, with audits all the time so that they couldn't, keep up with it financially, and that it made it impossible for them to stay afloat. So, that's kind of what this is talking about. It mentions that he is in charge of all whistleblowing witnesses. Now, this kind of made me stop a little bit because I was under the impression that the IGs were the ones who dealt with the whistleblowers, and that actually right now Horowitz was like the main head of the guys looking at whistleblowers. But I think I'm evidently wrong on that. I don't know. I'm still looking to find out, exactly how that fits in. I do know that the IGs, the inspectors general, are the ones who depend on whistleblowers because of their investigations. So I don't know. I'm not sure how this works. Is this organization in charge of them? But yet the inspectors general are under the DOJ. That's why I was trying to find out exactly how they fit in. And the OSC doesn't appear to be under the DOJ. So not sure exactly where it fits in. Maybe one of you has a link that you could share with me down below that will show me, where in the hierarchy of our government does this fit. But all I know is that it's in the executive branch and that it is under Trump. That's pretty much all I know about it at this point. But I would think that there's got to be more to it, As I look through things, it appears that this particular office is about 100 and some people. I think 114 or 110, somewhere around there. And so it's not a huge department, and they seem to be doing an awful lot of stuff. So that makes me question too, they've got to surely be under some other organization. But again, I haven't nailed that down yet. I don't know. This article says that he is in charge of all the whistleblowing, and that would be the witnesses and all these cases of government corruption. So he controls the events as the lead official, the special counsel in charge of the Office of Special Counsel, and he is in the position to manipulate, control any investigative outcome. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then he goes on, this is Sundance that wrote this, I believe, but wait, historic sunlight makes it much worse. Consider Koerner's D.C. history. Mr. Koerner graduated, and this is the same thing, graduated from Harvard, and he joined the staff of the House Oversight, which was under ISA, and he led investigations of the federal bureaucracy. He was the staff director under John McCain, the lead investigative committee of Congress. So he's been involved with a lot of investigative things, and kind of interesting to see that. But these were the people he was under. Okay, let's look at these. We have ISA, Fast and Furious. We have Chaffetz, who was looking at the IRS targeting. We have Gowdy, who was looking at Benghazi. And we've got Nunes, who's looking into the Flynn intel leaks. And this guy was part of all of these. So what do they all have in common? Evidently, Henry Kerner. Now, a whole bunch of things begin to make sense. From a CV summary, you have this connection here, all of those. And seriously, think about this example. On April 30th, 2013, Henry Kerner is participating in a meeting with the IRS officials. That's the document I showed you back here, right here, where he made that statement about keep auditing them until we ruin them, you know? I just can't believe somebody would actually say that. That was April 30th, 2013, and then September 5th, 2014, a year and a half later, Henry Kerner, the lead investigative agent who published a report on the investigation into the IRS weaponization. So here was the report about, whether the IRS was really targeting those conservative groups, and here's his name on there. So, and there's a link to the PDF. Imagine investigating yourself. That's exactly what Koerner was doing as a member of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. And now Henry Kerner is in charge of all investigations of fraud and abuse in government and the outcomes of whistleblowers. No wonder the deep state feels empowered. With DC control agents ensuring the corruption and gross misconduct remains hidden, there's not much fear of getting caught. Unreal. So that's that article. I do understand this. And again, that was the conservative Treehouse, by Sundance. I do understand this, but there are some questions that I still have. And that's because of, let's see if I can find it, some of the things that this Cause of Action Institute that he is connected with, they've done some pretty good things, it appears. And some of them had to do with presidential access to taxpayer information under Obama. And this article right here and the related documents and things clearly are not standing with Obama. This was definitely not from a swamp creature perspective. Okay? And here's the report. You've got these reports here. And again, this was with Obama, that he accessed taxpayer information. When I was younger, I was not really into politics. I was very much into religion. And so that's where my focus was. And I wasn't really connecting how the things really go together. But as I've grown in the last few years, as things got more intense, especially during the, 2008 election, I really started kicking in and saying, I need to do more investigation for myself and find out more about our government, because while I was aware of a lot of the big issues, I didn't know what was really going on because I only listened to the mainstream media. And, out here in the sticks, we only get like 3 stations. This was just something that I never saw a real need to get that involved in politics. But then, like I said, the 2008 election, and things really started snowballing from them because I started seeing what was going on. And then you hear Obama saying, not a smidgen of corruption, but yet you're seeing all these examples of corruption. And it's like, well, nobody's getting prosecuted. I guess if that's what you call corruption, that as long as nobody gets prosecuted, there's no corruption. That's not what was happening. And I started listening to hearings and everything then. So there's a lot of historical things that I was not aware of. This about, the Obama people accessing confidential taxpayer information, I didn't know that. And this is dated October 12, 2016. So a lot I didn't know until I really started looking into things. So again, these links are all down below. You can look at them and read about it yourself. And, here's their report on it. And it just, lots of things that they were doing. And this was interesting. By and large, however, government actors, especially those not administering taxes, are legally and procedurally barred from publishing or using confidential information about any taxpayer absent prior consent. And you know what? That includes Trump. So really, Congress is kind of limited as to what they can do to get Trump's tax information legally. Okay. And so they really, unless he gives them prior consent, they really cannot do much. It is possible that they can get the Secretary of the Treasury to allow them to have that in a closed session and only for congressional eyes. And then possibly they could get it so they could release them then. But, it's not going to be easy for them to do that, or they would have already done it, right? But there's not going to be anything there when they are looking for it. They're not going to find what they want. And so anyway, and then here was, the guy that put out the call to get Trump's tax returns, and that was February 1st, 2017. So what, 10 days after he got elected? A couple weeks. So yeah, there was that too. Again, I've got all of these down below. It just is interesting. This was another one that organization did, and they found out that NOAA, the NOAA, they actually destroyed some records. And yeah, they found that out. So they were destroying any instant messages that were going on. They said that they didn't have to keep them. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. It's part of government work. You've got to archive those. So yeah, they were doing that. So again, this organization, I saw several cases that they were looking into, and it looked to me like they really were trying to oust all the bad stuff. Here was a Daily Caller article about that, when they were deleting their G chats, their Google chats. So thought that was interesting too. And then here's the organization again, and this one was about John Kerry. And they had a request for referral to the Attorney General for the intentional and unlawful alteration of a federal record by State Department employees. This is a case where James Rosen asked a question during a briefing, and they deleted his question because they didn't like it. Yeah, so the State Department said, we just don't want to keep a record of him asking that question. Yeah, and it was like, the question was something like, is it okay to lie to the people? And basically they were saying, well, in some cases. So yeah, anyway, that's another one. I told you I have a ton of these open, and I don't want to spend too much time on any one. And of course, John McCain did some stuff with some legislation with the IRS. Again, I'm not going to go through all this, but it was something that ended up causing a lot of problems, and that was part of this. Koerner was part of this and discussing it. So this has been around for a while. It's not like this is new. It's been out there and people know about it. So evidently Henry Kerner has not been doing us any favors. But here was the chart that I was looking at, and I kept thinking, well, maybe it's in here somewhere. But no, it's not. You've got the Office of Legislative Affairs, Office of Legal Counsel, Office of Legal Policy, Office of Public Affairs, Office of Tribal Justice, but you don't have the Office of Special Counsel. That does not fall on this chart anywhere. So I just thought it was really interesting. I'm sure it fits somewhere, but I just don't know where. The situation is, as far as I know it now, as far as I can tell, this guy right here, Henry Kerner, is not working for us, and it's very likely that he's the person who's keeping a lot of these investigations from actually happening like they should. So, I don't know that he's the sole person, because again, he works, in an organization that has over 100 people in it, but 100's not that many, really. When you're talking about working with a staff, it's very likely that you could get 100 people, or you could get enough of 100 people to help you pull something off. I mean, look what the FBI did, and they have a lot more than 100 people working in the FBI. So, I just think that there's probably something to this. I wanted to bring it to your attention and let you know this was somebody that Trump appointed, but Trump had a lot of people to appoint. And when you're looking at people who are willing to work in D.C., there's an awful lot of swamp creatures, and that's pretty much who you have to choose from. So how do you appoint people when you know that 9 out of 10 of them are probably swamp creatures? And it seems like this guy probably is one. And just the fact that he works so closely with John McCain is enough for me, honestly. I'm sure that there's a reason why he worked with McCain. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I wanted to point it out to you. If you want to go through, I'll have these links down below so you can read about these kinds of things from the Cause of Action Institute. I thought, from what I looked at it, this looked like a pretty legitimate organization. Maybe I missed something, okay? And I'd be happy if you read some of these documents and tell me, do you think that this is written by swamp people? I don't think it is. I think it's written by people that actually want to get to the truth, no matter who the person is in the crosshairs. So I have one last thing to finish this up with, and that is a response to Cipollone's letter to rebut the accusations made against Kellyanne Conway. And this is the response that they gave. The report itself was put out then June 13th, and this response was to the June 11th letter that Cipollone put out, and this was written on June 13th. So I'm going to go through this real quick. The U.S. Office of Special Counsel respects the Office of White House Counsel, but respectfully disagrees with its position and will not withdraw its report sent to the President today, finding numerous Hatch Act violations made by counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway. As a threshold matter, OSC strongly rejects the Office of White House Counsel's unfortunate characterization of our Hatch Act report as tainted by improper considerations. OSC stands by the professionalism and integrity of its career federal employees. And I highlighted that just because I've talked in the past, whenever they talk about career federal employees, those are people who are unelected and who are in there for the long haul. And so, that doesn't necessarily mean they're objective. And that's the term they often use when they want to toss the ball into the court of the deep state players. So that's not a good phrase to be using. Who carried out this investigation and compiled the report. As a unit, they represent decades of experience enforcing the Hatch Act and have never carried out their duties in a manner suggesting partisan bias. Although we've seen it, but hey, ignore what you've seen. As dedicated public servants, they take pride in OSC's important mission to ensure that the federal workplace is based on merit principles and free from partisan political influences. In addition, the Office of White House Counsel's letter seriously misrepresents the process leading up to the issuance of this report. OSC repeatedly attempted to engage with the White House in efforts to bring Ms. Conway into compliance with the Hatch Act. The contention that the OSC's report is legally, factually, and procedurally in error is similarly without merit. So in other words, they're just kind of looking at what Cipollone told them and said, no, we're not going to agree at all with what you say, so there. Meh. OSC's findings are well grounded in established legal principles governing Hatch Act enforcement. The report accurately reflects the facts and history of this case and our handling of this matter as procedurally found. Pursuant to the clear statutory directive and consistent with OSC's long-standing past practice, we forwarded our report to the President. OSC will not be responding to the Office of White House Counsel's intrusive demand for our investigative files, because you remember at the end of Cipollone's letter, he said, but if you're going to go on with this, if you're going to pursue this and you're not going to retract it, then we want all these files. And, oh, but you don't deserve the files. You can't get our files. But, hey, the Democrats want all those files, from Mueller and everything. There's just such a double standard. There just really is. So he says, such requests, including for the entire investigation files relating to the report, if OSC chooses not to, quote, withdraw and retract its report, are wholly inappropriate. These requests represent a significant encroachment on OSC's independence. So giving them the information is going to do that. This attempt by the counsel's office to oversee our investigative and enforcement authority introduces a serious perception of undue influence in an apparent effort to bias the outcome of OSC's independent investigation. We appreciate the Office of White House Counsel's previously stated commitment to ensuring that all federal employees, including White House staff, are properly trained and abiding by the Hatch Act's restrictions on partisan political activity. We also share its stated desire that our offices continue to collaborate in fostering a culture of compliance at the White House. OSC is fully committed to assisting all legal employees, including those in the White House, in exercising their First Amendment rights while abiding by the restrictions imposed by the Hatch Act. Now, with Kellyanne Conway, as I understood it from what Cipollone was saying, and I think he's probably accurate on this, that, the problem was she was not attacking the individuals. What she was doing was targeting policies. She was speaking policies, and if you listen to the clips, that's what I heard her talking about. She wasn't just saying this is a bad person. She said, no, this person stands for this policy. The administration stands for this policy. So it's in contradiction to what the administration stands for. Now, when you're doing that, then it doesn't become, an ad or something saying, you should vote for so-and-so. You should. No, it's like, this is what our administration is doing. And if you like what our administration is doing, you need to have people that support that, and so this person's not going to support it. That, to me, is not a violation of the Hatch Act at all. But, according to the OSC and good old Henry here, evidently it is. So, this was not actually put out by Henry. This was by Zachary Kurtz, who is one of their people in the Office of Special Counsel. But he's not the head. Henry is the head. So, yeah. So I wanted to share all that with you. That's what I've got. I've got all the links below for you because there are a ton of them. And so you can pick and choose which ones you want to spend a little more time maybe going through and reading. But I just thought this was really interesting, and there's so much to it. It's hard for me to believe that this Henry Kerner guy was involved in all of those different investigations that went nowhere eventually, even though there was plenty of evidence that crimes had been committed. But, oh no, they went nowhere. So what was the common denominator? It appears he is the common denominator. And now if he's in this powerful position, it very well could be something to the idea that he's the one kind of the keystone player that's blocking a lot of things. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.